Why was everyone pretending she didn't exist when she stepped into the briefing room? She stood near the back wall, expression unreadable, hands clasped behind her lower spine the way instructors do when they want to see everything without giving anything away. Her mouth still carried a faint swelling along the lower lip. The cut wasn't completely healed, and she could still feel the sharp reminder of that cracked tooth when she drew a slow breath. She didn't need a mirror to remember Friday. Her nerves remembered for her. The way a kick feels when bone splits against bone. The way silence can taste like blood and patience at the same time. 27 Marines filled the room. They laughed easily, loudly, in that careless way men do when the world has never told them no. On the far right, Corporal Von Rohr lounged in his chair like he owned gravity. Hollis Grayson sat beside him, arms crossed, still trying to convince himself confidence was a performance. Deacon Merritt stared into space as if chewing his gum helped him think. In 3 days, Kira Brennan had learned exactly who they were. And exactly what they feared. Not strength. Not confrontation. Documentation. A lieutenant commander droned through training directives as if reading from an obituary. Camp Grey Rock operated like that, bored at the surface, corrosive underneath, a graveyard for potential, a sanctuary for misconduct. Kira let her eyes drift across the projector screen without absorbing a word. She had already memorized the schedule at dawn. What mattered now wasn't planning. It was temperature, emotion, stress fractures. Rohr hadn't glanced at her once. That told her everything. When someone fears exposure more than violence, they pretend indifference. Kira shifted her jaw slow. Pain flickered. She breathed it away. She had learned long ago pain is information, not verdict. Pain teaches focus. Pain reduces ego. Pain reminds you who you are when adrenaline lies. Her mind whispered a single truth. They still think she's scared. Let them. The lieutenant commander dismissed the room. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Bodies shuffled out, careless. Kira stayed where she was. She counted silently. 3 seconds. 5. 8. On 9, Rohr rose from his seat like a man volunteering for a mistake. Grayson followed. Merritt trailed by habit. They didn't look at her. They walked past as if she were air. But Kira caught it. Rohr's throat tightened once when he passed the doorway. A microflinch. Regret pretending to be anger. She waited until the room emptied and stepped outside. The Nevada morning slammed into her lungs, a dry heat that punished weakness and sharpened resolve. Marines dispersed toward the obstacle compound. She didn't follow. She headed toward the admin building, her boots steady, hands loose, pulse measured. She wasn't there to chase them. She wasn't there to intimidate anyone. Her mission wasn't confrontation. Her mission was corrosion, the slow, undeniable collapse of a lie. Inside her pocket rested the black notebook, weatherproof, creased, carried through seas and sand and decisions no one would ever hear about. She flipped it open on a bench outside, shaded from the sun. Typed lines, handwritten annotations. Times. Locations. Witnesses. Harassment escalating into assault. Not theory. Not emotion. Not opinion. Evidence. Her pen tapped once on the paper. Old habit. Mackenzie used to say it was her accuracy tick, the rhythm her mind used when she was calibrating. Mackenzie. She looked toward the training hangars across the courtyard. She could already feel him watching her in his own way, not hovering, not shepherding, just acknowledging the presence of an operator with unfinished business. She remembered Hell Week, his voice cracking across wind and ocean at 4 in the morning. Strength gets you through what others see. Intelligence gets you through what no one ever sees. She hadn't understood then. She understood now. A door swung open somewhere behind her, light footsteps, a female voice. Chief. Kira turned. A junior Navy corpsman, barely mid-20s, anxious fingers worrying the seam of her pocket. Brown hair tied tight, rank insignia slightly faded. Yes, Kira said. The corpsman glanced around. Heard about Friday. Kira didn't shift, didn't change expression. Did you? People talk, the corpsman said. Her eyes dropped toward Kira's lip, then away. They didn't talk like it was your fault. Not all of them. Not all. She almost smiled. The woman drew a breath. I just wanted to say, I'm glad you filed the report. Kira nodded once, acceptance without camaraderie. Did something happen to you? She asked. The corpsman swallowed, a flinch that looked like memory. Not me, a friend. Kira waited. Silence invites truth. She was a Marine, MP. Last year, complaints didn't go anywhere, she just left. Transferred. Silenced. Erased. What's your friend's name? Kira said. The corpsman hesitated. She asked me not to repeat it. That's her right, Kira said. No pressure. No disappointment, just acknowledgement. The woman's shoulders eased. I gotta go, a pause, but thank you for not quitting. Kira nodded again, then watched her leave. Not hope, not relief, just data. One more confirmation that harassment had a cost. She thought of the other woman, the one she never met, the one who didn't get a second shot, the one whose absence lived in an empty bunk Kira now slept in. Silence has many shapes. Sometimes it's a transfer request. Sometimes it's avoidance. Sometimes it's a cracked tooth held behind closed lips because justice shouldn't depend on emotional reaction. Her phone vibrated. A message from Mackenzie. Ops wants performance reports by 1300. Need anything? She typed back. No, everything's in motion. Seconds later, another buzz. They're scared. Fear makes men stupid. Be patient. She stared at the screen for a moment, thumb hovering. Patience isn't the problem. Anticipation is. She set the phone down, looked toward the desert horizon. The wind blew sand against asphalt in shifting lines like tactical diagrams. If war had a language, it spoke in patterns like these. Camp Grey Rock didn't know it yet, but a quiet war had already started. Not bullets, not broken doors, not decisive victories, just accountability tightening like a snare. She drew one more breath, feeling the pulse in her cracked incisor, a flicker of pain, a reminder of cost. Then she stood, closed the notebook, slipped it back into her pocket. The base was waking up. The day was moving toward noon. Somewhere, 3 Marines were convincing themselves the world still worked the way they wanted. It wouldn't. Not anymore. And Kira Brennan, Chief Petty Officer, Naval Special Warfare, Black Belt Close Quarters Instructor, 8-year operator with scars across her knuckles, moved back into the sunlight like a shadow preparing to become undeniable. No speeches. No heroics. Just a quiet truth. Dignity doesn't beg. It observes. It acts. And the next act was coming. Why did the whispers grow louder the moment she stepped into the chow hall? Yet every voice shut down when she looked up. Tension works like contagion. It spreads through posture, through tone, through the tiny pauses in conversation when someone realizes truth is stalking them. By noon, Camp Grey Rock felt contaminated by something no one wanted to name. Not fear, not guilt, not justice. Exposure. Kira walked through the chow line with quiet, deliberate motion. Steamed vegetables, grilled chicken, rice, water. Same meal every day. Predictability preserved focus. Predictability minimized physiological swings. In 8 years operating under naval special warfare, she'd learned nutrition was discipline, not preference. But here, discipline was interpreted as arrogance. She could feel their eyes track her from table to table. Marines who had once laughed off accountability now calculating the odds of administrative review. Some stared because of the injury, a lower lip still swollen, a faint scab catching the light when she turned her head. Others stared because of the rumors. She was a SEAL. She was an instructor. She wasn't supposed to be in a support role. Truth disrupts power structures. Kira sat in the far corner, chair angled just enough to see the entire room. Always take the seat with oversight. Never sit with your back exposed, not in a base where hostility hides behind familiarity. She ate slowly, drinking between bites, letting her jaw adjust to the fractured tooth. Pain radiated upward through her cheek like a pulse behind bone. Manageable. She could almost welcome it. Pain was honesty, an edge that did not negotiate or flatter. It reminded her of standards. Across the room, two Marines leaned close, both pretending they weren't looking at her. I'm telling you, she filed real evaluations, like documented ones. Bro, that affects promotion cycles. No, you don't get it. That affects everything. Consequences. The one combat multiplier the military rarely trains for. Kira finished her meal in 13 minutes, her standard window, and stood. The whispering intensified. She didn't accelerate or acknowledge. She picked up her tray and walked toward the return line. Two contractors stepped aside before she reached them, not avoidance, not politeness. Recognition. Something subtle shifted. The ridicule that had greeted her arrival 4 days ago was now a quieter war, uncertainty, second-guessing, recalibration. Public mockery worked only when the subject bent under pressure. She hadn't bent. That was the beginning of the end for Roar's fiction. Outside, the air shifted warm. A low desert wind kicked dust against the concrete walk. Kira adjusted her cap, letting the breeze cool her jawline. She didn't turn when she sensed footfalls matching pace behind her, too light to be male infantry. She waited. Chief Brennan. She slowed and glanced back. Amanda Straude, the admin petty officer who processed her on day one, stood there, clipboard tucked against her ribs like armor. Her expression carried something cautious, something unspoken. Yes, Kira said. Straude took a breath. I heard you ran the combat evaluation this morning. Correct. Straude hesitated. Some Marines weren't happy. Correct. A tiny exhale. You didn't seem bothered. Not relevant. Straude's fingers tightened on the clipboard. Do you ever get tired of it? Kira understood the subtext immediately. She had heard variations of that question from junior female sailors over the years. Tired of proving yourself. Tired of the extra scrutiny. Tired of the bruises that healed slower because they weren't just physical. Yes, Kira answered, honest, but tired doesn't mean done. Straude nodded, processing the difference. If you need administrative routing or paperwork formatting or witness identification, tell me. I know where records are. That was an offer and a risk. That meant Straude had picked a side without saying so. Kira didn't reward it. That would make Straude visible, vulnerable. Thank you, Kira said simply. Then, take care of yourself. Straude nodded like she understood exactly why that mattered. She walked away. Kira continued across the asphalt toward Building 12. The sun arced higher, heat climbing around her like a thermal curtain. She preferred heat. It stripped excuses. It demanded adaptation. In Coronado, heat separated those who endured from those who resented endurance. Inside the training office, Master Chief Mackenzie stood at the whiteboard marking rotations for next week evaluations. His voice rumbled low as he spoke with a gunnery sergeant, professional tone, tactical phrasing. If they fail the retention lanes again, we change the drills. I care about technique, not theatrics. The gunnery sergeant nodded and left the office. Mackenzie turned. His eyes tracked her face. He saw the lip, the subtle bruise, the restrained fury and stillness. His voice stayed level. You filed the reports. Yes. The backlash starts now. Yes. He took a slow sip of bad coffee. You know what will happen tonight. I do. He studied her quietly, evaluating resilience, risk, proximity to emotional fracture. Do you regret provoking it? Kira lowered her gaze for 1 second, not in submission, in reflection. Provoking. What a word. She looked up. I documented cause, they created effect. Mackenzie's brow lifted slightly, approval disguised as neutrality. You're aligning evidence like a prosecution brief. That's the assignment. His jaw flexed. Something like pride passed beneath his features, but pride was dangerous. Pride made instructors push students past safety. Pride made operators take unnecessary risks. Pride made Marines kick a woman in the mouth and call it training. Mackenzie returned to the whiteboard. They'll try psychological pressure first, belittling, rationalization, maybe apology disguised as intimidation. Men like that look for cracks. They'll find scar tissue instead. That earned a ghost of a smile from him. You always used pain like armor. Pain is proof. He nodded once. How's the tooth? Functional. That was the operator answer. Pain is not a reportable condition, only a factor in readiness. He set the marker down. You're alone in this. Not a disadvantage. No, Mackenzie agreed, just lonely. Kira held his gaze. Something tightened behind her ribs, something old, something she didn't articulate often. He was right. Loneliness had a texture, the absence of peers, the isolation of capability, the silence of being an outlier, but she didn't flinch from it. Lonely is survivable, she said. He didn't argue. At 1300 hours, she sat at a workstation uploading the evaluation scores, cursor blinking on a command channel email, technical language, no editorializing, no personal opinion, just quantified failure. Her last line read, "Performance deficiencies appear behavioral, not instructional." She clicked send. There. Permanent. Undeniable. By 1400 hours, resistance began its next evolution. Someone left a folded paper on her workstation. No name, no header. A crude drawing of a bell and the phrase, "Ring it, you're done." Hell week. The bell. The myth of quitting. She tore the paper in 3 pieces, dropped it in a recycling bin. No reaction. Reaction feeds bullies. Bullying requires oxygen. She gave them none. At 15:15, a young Marine, couldn't have been older than 19, approached her near the stairwell. "Chief, can I ask something?" She turned, his hands trembled. "Did it hurt?" Kira didn't pretend confusion. "Yes." "Did you cry?" "No." His Adam's apple bobbed. "I think that matters." She waited. "My sister's a Marine," he said. "She almost quit because of people like that." A beat, too. His throat worked against whatever memory wanted out. "She didn't quit," he whispered, "and I don't want her to." Kira felt something flicker at the edges of composure, not softness, recognition. "Tell your sister endurance is strategy," she said. "Quitting is sometimes survival, but silence is never justice." He absorbed that, nodded, walked away. By 1630, rumors had evolved into counter-narratives. Marines outside the gym exchanged theories as if theorizing protected them. Some said she baited Roar. Some said the medical report exaggerated. Some said she was planted to dismantle morale. People prefer conspiracy to accountability. As shadows lengthened across the asphalt, one truth settled over the compound like evening chill. Nobody believed Roar anymore. They feared him, yes, but they didn't believe him. That was worse for him than disciplinary review. Belief is currency. Once revoked, value collapses. Kira returned to her barracks as the sky shifted orange to pale blue. She washed her face, applied antiseptic to the lip. The mirror showed a woman marked by violence, but not defined by it. She touched her knuckles, scar tissue like road maps. She whispered, "For the ones who left." Not prayer. Not vengeance. Dedication. She sat on the bunk's edge, elbows resting on her thighs, letting quiet settle. Not planning violence, planning recognition. Tonight wasn't a fight. Tonight was documentation. Tonight was the moment a system either proved it worked or revealed its rot. Her pulse slowed. At 1740, a notification pinged her phone. A short text from an unknown number. Meet tonight, 2100, Gym Annex, talk. She didn't respond immediately. She let the silence stretch. She let inevitability breathe. Finally, she typed back 2 words. Understood, arriving. She set the phone down. The desert air leaked through the vent. Night approached. Somewhere, 3 Marines were convincing themselves a meeting could rewrite evidence. They didn't understand yet. Truth doesn't negotiate. Why did the night feel so calm when everyone on base sensed a storm coming? The desert cooled after sunset. Heat drained from the asphalt, leaving the compound wrapped in a thin shimmer of silence. Vehicles sat dormant. Exterior floodlights cast long white cones across concrete, turning shadows into territory. A few Marines jogged laps to clear their heads, pretending anxiety could be burned off through sweat. It never could. Anxiety lives where oxygen doesn't reach, deep, unaddressed. In her barracks, Kira tied her hair back with the precision of a weapons check. Every strand contained. No distractions. She rolled her sleeves down, not because regulation demanded it, but because fabric hid bruising. Visible wounds turned into theater. Hidden wounds turned into records. She slid the black notebook into her pocket. She didn't need it for the meeting. Documentation was already secure in medical logs, command emails, performance reports, timestamps. The notebook remained with her for one reason only. It reminded her she wasn't reacting. She was building a case. The clock read 20:43, 17 minutes early. Operators arrived early because control begins with timing. But she didn't leave yet. She waited through the tension, not rushing toward confrontation, not feeding adrenaline's lies. The most dangerous decisions occur when the heartbeat accelerates without purpose. At 20:52, she stepped out, boots hitting concrete like punctuation. The sky was black, no moon, only military-grade fluorescence. Ground crews had long since shut down maintenance bays. Everything about Camp Gray Rock felt suspended, like breath before impact. She walked toward the gym annex with the posture of someone headed to a briefing, not a threat. Shoulders level, gaze steady, breathing regulated. Fear manifests in subtle ways: shoulder tightness, shallow breath, eyes scanning too fast. Kira checked none of those boxes. She was not afraid. She was waiting. The annex sat at the end of a side path, older concrete, scuffed doors, 2 mounted lights flickering from half-working wiring. A sensor lamp buzzed overhead. She entered at 20:58. The room smelled of rubber mats, chalk dust, and sweat dried into fabric. A low hum from fluorescent fixtures filled the silence. 4 dome cameras sat in their fixed corners. Only one mattered: the new unit with the audio mic trained on the central mat space. Kira stood beneath it, centered, visible, open-body posture, hands at her sides. She placed her phone on a weight bench nearby, screen up, recording, timestamp active, insurance layered over infrastructure. She didn't bother hiding it. Transparency was a weapon. Her jaw ached. A pulse throbbed through the fractured incisor like a living reminder. Pain grounded focus. She inhaled slow, exhaled slower. Footsteps echoed from outside. 3 sets, heavy boots, no attempt at stealth. They entered at 21:03. Roar came through first, chin high, jaw clenched, expression manufactured into professionalism. Grayson followed, tension riding his shoulders. Merritt lingered near the door, gum moving faster than normal. They spread out instinctively, dominance behavior disguised as casual stance. Roar stopped 6 feet away, not too close, not too far, a distance meant for negotiation or escalation. "Chief," he said, Corporal, she answered. A pause. The air between them carried voltage. You know why we're here, Roar said. To discuss your performance concerns, she replied. Her tone offered nothing. No emotion, no mockery, just precision. That frustrated him more than anger would have. Grayson shifted. We want clarity. Kira nodded slightly. Ask. Roar inhaled through his nose. Your evaluation documented failures that don't reflect operational capability. We believe the methods were biased. Which part was biased? The weapon retention drill, Roar said. Rotation technique isn't standard infantry doctrine. You graded us on skills we haven't been trained in. Weapon retention without leverage is weakness, Kira said. Weakness under opposition leads to weapon loss. Weapon loss leads to body recovery. Doctrine doesn't protect you. Technique does. Grayson frowned. It felt like you wanted us to fail. I want Marines to meet survivability standards. Whether you meet them is your responsibility. Roar stepped closer, not much, just 2 inches, enough to challenge. You embarrassed my squad. You exposed your own deficiencies. You're pushing an agenda, Roar snapped. You want female operators treated like frontline assets. You want to prove something. Kira didn't blink. The only thing I proved is that you can't stabilize under pressure. Merritt looked between them, nervousness sharpening into dread. Chief, maybe we can reset, rerun the evaluation, clean slate. There is no clean slate, Kira said. There is record. Roar's jaw worked. His ego fought oxygen. You think this ends with a report? It ends with accuracy. A man's career can be ruined over technicalities. A woman's career has already been ruined over silence. The room stilled. Even the lights felt quieter. Roar blinked once, twice. His confidence wavered, but anger arrived to brace it. You don't get to make accusations, he said. You don't get to walk into a Marine facility and rewrite how we train. You're support personnel. I am Naval Special Warfare. A tattoo doesn't make you special. 8 years of operational deployments do. Roar scoffed, but his eyes flickered with something involuntary. Recognition. He'd known deep down. He just needed denial more than understanding. Grayson asked the question he didn't want answered. You actually deployed? Kira nodded. Multiple theaters, classified operations, hand-to-hand instructor certification maintained annually. 94 operators trained to standard. 89 passed. 5 failed. Roar's voice sharpened. We are not your students. Your subjects in an ongoing evaluation. His expression darkened. You think we're scared of paperwork. Paperwork outlives bravado. That landed hard. Roar's face twitched, a muscle jumping near his right eye. Threat hormones ran laps inside him. Logic struggled to keep up. He switched tactics. You want leverage, he said quietly. But leverage works both ways. An assault allegation without witnesses. Medical report without context. 3 Marines who say you manufactured an incident. That becomes hearsay. Kira tilted her head. So what are you saying, Corporal, that the kick never happened? It was accidental. Documented blunt force trauma is not accident. You walked into it. Kira blinked once. So now the narrative is that my face hit your foot. Grayson looked down. Shame lived in his posture but didn't speak aloud. Roar pushed harder. We can deny intent. We can deny escalation. We can deny harassment. Command listens to patterns, not isolated claims. Kira's voice cut through him like a scalpel. You escalated, you surrounded, you initiated contact. Roar smirked, and you can't prove audio. Kira didn't move her head. Only her gaze lifted, straight toward the audio-capable camera above. Roar froze. Grayson followed her gaze, his breath hitched. Merritt stopped chewing altogether. Roar recovered fast, but not fast enough. That flicker of realization had been visible, permanent. He stepped back, not retreat, reposition. "This conversation is off the record," he said. "No," Kira corrected. "This conversation is archived." Silence detonated. Roar's bravado thinned. Sweat formed at his hairline. His tactics faltered. He tried one more angle. "You think humiliation makes you righteous?" "No, it makes you honest. That medical report will get buried." It triggered mandatory command review. Review isn't conviction. Truth isn't conditional. Something in Roar finally cracked. Not a bone, not a tooth, his narrative. The fiction that he controlled perception. That women could be intimidated into silence. That power belonged to loud voices and confident postures. He whispered what he should never have said. "You should have stayed quiet." Kira stepped forward, not aggressive, just assertive. "That sentence is the reason I'm here." His breath changed, a small exhale of panic. He understood too late. He had already confessed. She held his gaze, unwavering. "Do you know what I told myself after you kicked me?" He said nothing. "That 2 other women walked away, because men like you confuse authority with impunity." Still nothing. "And that I wouldn't be the 3rd. He swallowed hard. Merritt moved first, voice thin. "Chief, we didn't mean." She cut him off. "Meaning is irrelevant, outcome matters." Roar wasn't done. A wounded ego doesn't die quietly. "You want a moral victory," he hissed. "You want respect." "No, I want accountability." "You won't get it," he said, "because the system protects us." Kira didn't smile, but her voice softened, not gentle, just cold clarity. "Systems protect themselves, but documentation disrupts complacency. You escalated violence, you built hostility, and now you've added recorded coercion." His pupils thinned. Fight-or-flight chemistry pooled in his bloodstream. "What do you think happens next?" he asked. Kira exhaled once, a controlled release of tension. "Nothing dramatic," she said. "No punches, no shouts, no brawl. You're hopping for chaos. I'm offering precision." Roar didn't understand. So she explained. "You walk out of this room thinking you still have leverage. You believe you can spin narrative. You hope fear collapses evidence. Meanwhile, the system wakes up, and it doesn't care about ego. It cares about liability." "A beat." "You're not a threat, Corporal. You're a file number." Roar flinched. Kira stepped back beneath the camera, ensuring every word remained inside the audio field. "Meeting concluded," she said. "Good night." She turned, picked up her phone, stopped recording, logged the timestamp. Then she walked past them, slow, unhurried, dismissive, the kind of exit that unmade power. Behind her, no one spoke. 3 Marines stood frozen in a gym that suddenly felt very small. Outside, the desert wind stirred, cold now, sharp, predictive. Something was coming. Not violence. Not revenge. Consequence. And for the first time since Friday, Kira Brennan felt it. Not anger. Not pain. Just quiet certainty. They were out of time. And she was out of patience. Why did the morning feel heavier than the night? Like accountability had weight, and everyone sensed gravity shifting. Reveille hit at 5:30. The bugle call echoed across Camp Gray Rock, bouncing off hangars, barracks, and the last fragments of sleep. Marines rolled out of bunks. Boots thudded on flooring. Metal lockers slammed shut with frazzled impatience. But beneath the routine, something else stirred: anticipation, rumor, uncertainty. By the time Kira stepped outside, the sky was barely a shade past charcoal, thin blue ripping at the horizon. She walked with unhurried tempo toward the training lanes. Fresh coffee steam drifted from thermoses held by enlisted, still pretending the world operated by familiar rules. But familiarity dies quickly when truth begins moving. She sensed eyes track her across the tarmac, not hostile, not mocking, evaluating, calculating risk. The base had shifted its social temperature overnight. 4 days ago, she was an outsider. 3 days ago, an inconvenience. Now, a catalyst. Accountability rewrites roles, whether anyone wants the rewrite or not. She adjusted the tension on her wrist wrap before stepping into the training grid. Mackenzie was already there, arms crossed, watching 6 Marines run movement drills. His gaze pinned every inefficiency: knee placement, center mass shifts, recoil recovery. He valued motion like mathematicians valued constants. He didn't look at her when he said, "You got sleep?" "Yes." No intrusive thoughts. "No." Breathing pattern controlled. "Consistent." He nodded once. That was their version of a wellness check. Mackenzie turned his head slightly. "You met them last night." Kira answered with silence. Silence was confirmation. And he prompted. "They tried narrative manipulation," she said. "Coercion attempt, denial strategy, short-range intimidation. Effective. Counterproductive." He exhaled through his nose, an operator's laugh. "They saw the camera, didn't they?" "Too late." Mackenzie rubbed a hand down his jaw. "They'll scramble story alignment today. Expect rebuttals. Truth doesn't rush. And fear always does." Kira watched 2 Marines drag a training sled across gravel. Their shoulders hunched forward, bad angle, wasted leverage. "You're going to correct that," she murmured. Mackenzie followed her line of sight. "If they survive the next review cycle, sure." Kira scanned the compound, reading micro-behaviors. The difference between service culture and operational culture was simple. Operators learned to read environment like scripture. People spoke softer in clumps. Leadership walked faster. Staff avoided eye contact as though visibility equaled liability. The admin building buzzed with routing requests. Someone in command, maybe a lieutenant, maybe a major, was already calculating exposure. The military fears one thing more than incompetence: paper trails. At 600, she left the grid and headed toward medical. The sun had risen enough to paint barracks in orange light. The wind carried a chill that cut through uniform fabric. Cold sharpened awareness. Inside medical, light burned sterile white. A corpsman examined her lip with gloved fingers, clinical, impersonal. "Bruising's unchanged," he said. "Tooth still fractured. You're scheduling a dental referral." "It's in progress." He logged the notation. Medical logs were immutable. They held no political bias. Flesh was flesh. Trauma left math. "Pain level?" he asked. 4. He hesitated. 4 as in normal expression, or 4 as in operator scale. Kira looked at him. "Operator." He marked 8, math again. When she left medical, the administrative hum grew louder. Voices rose through partially open windows. Paper movements. Ink signatures. Someone saying, "Mandatory review, we can't ignore it now." Someone else saying, "She has documentation." She didn't need to hear full sentences. Fragments were enough. Truth always leaked under doors. At 7:30, Chow Hall. Breakfast. Scrambled eggs, oats, fruit, water. Marines were already seated when she stepped inside. The pause was noticeable, not complete silence, but hesitation. Respect doesn't arrive suddenly, but fear does. She took her seat, 8 in her defined window. At the edge of her vision, Roar entered the hall. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't performing. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders stiff. A man preparing for battle on terrain he didn't understand. He avoided her table, not by avoidance but by calculation. Sitting near her gave tacit acceptance of legitimacy. Sitting far allowed distance, but distance confirmed fear. Grayson and Merritt followed, quieter than their uniforms. They sat near Roar. Conversation didn't start. Not at first. Then Roar leaned in, whispering too harshly. Kira didn't listen. She watched posture. Merritt's knee bounced. Grayson's hands fidgeted. Roar's jaw locked. Guilt has its own body language. After breakfast, she headed toward the admin building. The young petty officer at the entrance stiffened when she approached, not out of hostility, out of realization. Chief Brennan, ma'am, Commander Hayes flagged your file. He wants a statement follow-up. Time, 900. Understood. She walked down the hallway, office doors half closed, printers running, electronic routing pings. Paperwork moved like a bloodstream, unseen, essential, life-sustaining. She knew exactly what Hayes wanted. Clarity, consistency, confirmation. Truth wasn't enough for military review. They required articulation. Kira could provide articulation without theatrics. She sat outside the commander's office, hands folded back straight. Waiting never bothered her. Stillness was training. Silence was leverage. At 8:59, Hayes opened his door. He was tall, composed, mid-40s. His uniform was immaculate. His eyes carried the exhaustion of someone managing institutional liability more than leadership. Chief Brennan, come in. She entered. He gestured to a chair. She remained standing. He didn't push the issue. I reviewed the medical report, he said, and the training evaluations, and the witness logs. Kira didn't react. He continued. The language you used in the performance files, behavioral deficiencies, is blunt. Accuracy requires bluntness. Hayes leaned against his desk. You understand these Marines have clean records. Records reflect what is reported, not what is done. He absorbed that slowly. There's concern, he said, that your presence is disrupting cohesion. Cohesion built on silence is collapse, she answered. Hayes exhaled through his nose. Are you saying the issue is systemic? I'm saying the issue is cultural. Systemic is your word. He paused. That was the moment she'd expected. The moment a senior officer realized protecting the institution required acknowledging fracture. Hayes looked at her lip, at the faint purple near her cheek. Did you strike anyone in return? No. Why not? Reaction is admission. Control is evidence. A long silence. Hayes nodded like he'd just encountered a language he recognized from war zones, not from bases. He lifted a document. We opened a preliminary review, not an investigation yet. We need corroborating context. Documentation is corroboration. Documentation is foundation, he corrected. We need narrative. Kira finally sat, not concession, tactical engagement, her feet planted, spine aligned. Then asked. Hayes studied her like a witness under oath. What do you want out of this, Chief? The question many men ask when they cannot imagine motive beyond revenge. Kira inhaled, held, released. Standards, she said, quiet, certain. Hayes blinked. That's it. Yes. No disciplinary requests, no transfers. Accountability, nothing more. What does accountability look like to you? Recognition of behavior that violates survivability. Hayes frowned. This isn't combat, Chief. This is a training facility. Kira didn't look away. Combat culture is shaped here. Hayes's eyes softened, not sympathy, awareness, the first crack in institutional armor. He cleared his throat. I'll schedule formal interviews. You should expect retaliation attempts. Attempts are ineffective. Hayes gave a slow nod. You're very composed. Composure is strategy. He stood, she stood. The meeting concluded. As she stepped back into the hallway, she sensed movement behind her, Grayson. Alone, he hesitated before approaching. Chief, he said, voice low, can I talk? She waited. Grayson looked at the floor, shame-carved lines in his posture. "I was there Friday," he whispered. "I didn't stop it." Kira didn't rescue him with comfort. Accountability requires ownership. Grayson swallowed. "I knew Roar was pushing it. I knew he wanted to prove something. I thought if I intervened I'd get called weak, or worse. So you stayed silent." He nodded, small, broken. Kira didn't offer forgiveness. That wasn't hers to give. She offered truth. Courage exists before action. Shame exists after inaction. Grayson winced. "I'm not a bad Marine." "Fear doesn't make you bad. Silence makes you complicit." His eyes glistened. Not tears, just conflict. He whispered, "What do I do now?" "You tell the truth. And if it destroys, Roar." If truth destroys a man, he built himself on fiction. Grayson nodded once, twice, shoulders trembling with the weight of choosing a side. He turned and walked away, toward the future or toward ruin. She didn't know yet. Outside, the sun rose higher, exposing everything. At 11:30, someone placed another anonymous paper on her workstation. This one didn't threaten, it asked, "How did you stay when others broke?" She stared at the handwriting, small, tentative. She tucked the note inside her notebook, because that question deserved an answer someday, not now, not here, not cheap. At 1200, she stepped out into midday heat. Marines moved with a different rhythm now, some faster, some slower, but none ignorant. Accountability changes the oxygen content of a room. She stood watching the motor pool, engines revved, voices called cadence. Life went on, it always does, but in that ordinary motion an extraordinary shift was taking place. Truth was accumulating. Paper was moving. Investigations were aligning. And 3 Marines were running out of exits. Kira turned toward the admin building one more time. The wind caught her sleeve. She whispered without sentiment, "Consequences quiet." Then she walked on. Why did the truth feel heavier now, not explosive, not dramatic, just inevitable, like a tide that couldn't be pushed back? By late afternoon, Camp Gray Rock moved with the uneasy tempo of a place waiting for a verdict it couldn't predict. Vehicles idled longer than necessary. Marines double-checked weapon safeties that didn't need checking. Conversations drifted toward safer topics, whether chow rotation, weekend passes, anything except the reason tension sat on their shoulders like weighted vests. Kira walked along the perimeter, the chain-link fence casting narrow lines across her uniform with every step. She liked the outskirts. Outskirts offered perspective. Inside a compound, culture becomes airtight, beliefs shared, consequences ignored. Distance breaks the spell. Her boots crunched gravel. Her breath stayed steady. She let silence settle inside her, not as refuge but as calibration. Emotion wants to speak in moments like this, anger, satisfaction, fatigue, but emotion doesn't guide warfare. Patience does. A gust of wind dragged sand across the asphalt, scattering it at her feet. She watched the particles dance and vanish. Disappearance. How many women disappeared in places like this? How many careers evaporated because silence was easier than confrontation? She didn't resent them, she understood them. Not everyone is trained to survive truth. Her phone buzzed once. Unknown number. Cobb wants your presence at 1700. Command review update. She locked the screen. No reply necessary. She turned back toward the administrative row, passing 2 Marines who straightened instinctively as she approached. Neither spoke. Neither offered acknowledgement or disrespect. They didn't know what to do with her. She wasn't a cautionary tale. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't a threat. She was a mirror. And mirrors terrify people who don't want to see themselves. Inside the administrative building, cooling vents hummed overhead, cutting the heat. She approached the Command Master Chief's office, door cracked open enough to signal availability. He looked up when she stepped in, graying hair, boots perfectly shined, posture that spoke of a man who had watched too many careers implode for reasons that never made the paperwork. "Chief Brennan," he said, "close the door." She did. He gestured toward a chair. She remained standing. He didn't insist. "We've reviewed the initial logs," he said. "Medical, incident timing, performance evaluations. Commander Hayes looped in JAG for preliminary guidance. That mattered. JAG involvement removed preference. Lawyers didn't care about ego. Lawyers cared about liability risk. "We're opening a formal inquiry," the Master Chief said. Kira didn't move. "That means interviews," he continued. "Testimony, cross-statements, a recorded chronology. You'll be asked to repeat details, often." "I can repeat." He studied her jawline, the still visible swelling. "You want disciplinary action?" he asked. "Truth," she said. "That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters." He leaned back, exhaling through his nose. "You know what bothers me most about this place," he said. "Marines aren't afraid of combat, they're afraid of paperwork." She waited. "Because paperwork has no end," he said. "It doesn't flinch, it doesn't bleed, it just accumulates." A pause. "And you're letting it accumulate." Kira stayed silent. Agreement didn't need words. The Master Chief ran a hand across his scalp. "This will fracture loyalty on this base." "Loyalty built on silence isn't loyalty," she said. "It's functionality," he countered. "It's corruption." A long beat. He finally nodded, not approval, recognition. "You'll be contacted tomorrow for initial deposition," he said. "Expect interference." "From who?" she asked. "Everyone who fears exposure." He wasn't wrong. Before she left, he added, "You're composed, too composed. If you need support, say so." "I don't need support," she said. Then softer, "I need standards." He let her go. Outside, the air felt cooler. Evening crept in slowly, like uncertainty sliding into routine. She walked across the compound again, no rush, no weight in her gait. But inside her chest, a familiar pressure tightened. Not anxiety, anticipation. Her career was built on readiness, not reaction. As she passed the training cages, she spotted a young woman doing pull-ups, form tight, breathing controlled, sweat tracking down temples, a private first class barely old enough to drink. She dropped from the bar, legs shaking from exertion, and turned, surprised to see Kira watching. "Chief," the Marine said, straightening. Kira nodded. "Focus is good." The Marine blinked. "I didn't think anyone noticed." "Someone always notices," Kira said. The young woman hesitated. "They're saying you're reporting people, filing complaints. They're saying I'm documenting behavior." The Marine looked down at her hands, calloused, red, hands that wanted to belong somewhere. "Does it matter?" she asked. "One complaint, 3, a dozen." "It matters to the right person." "What if the right person never sees it?" "They will." The Marine swallowed. "I don't want to quit." "Then don't," Kira said. The woman's eyes lifted, fragile hope stitching itself into her gaze. Kira didn't smile, she didn't comfort, she offered something harder. "Staying hurts, leaving hurts. The question is which pain you're willing to own." The Marine nodded slowly. The nod of someone realizing strength is a negotiation with discomfort, not a badge awarded. Kira moved on. At 18:30, chow again. Noise louder than morning but without joy. Roar entered last, shoulders squared, trying to broadcast normalcy. But normalcy doesn't hold after fear touches bone. He sat, tried to eat, pretended nothing was happening. Denial always eats first. Acceptance finishes the plate. After chow, Kira walked toward the field. The sun was gone. Stars emerged, small, cold, in different points of reference. She remembered deployments where stars were the only fixed coordinates in chaos. She'd measured nights by them, measured breath by them, measured survival by them. Tonight they meant nothing, they were just sky. Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. "We know what you're doing." She read it twice. Not fear, just data. Then a second message. "Stop before someone gets hurt." She placed the phone back in her pocket and continued walking. Threats lose power when they land on someone who no longer negotiates. Someone approaching from the left, footsteps hesitating, then committing. Grayson. He stopped a few feet away, panting slightly from jogging to catch her. "I talked to Hayes," he said, breath uneven. "I told him my version." "You told him truth." "I told him I didn't stop Roar, that I saw him kick you, that I froze." Kira looked at him. "That's testimony." He nodded. "I don't know what happens now." "Consequence." He rubbed a hand over his face. "I feel sick." "You're experiencing accountability," she said. "Your nervous system isn't used to it." He exhaled shakily. "They're going to hate me." "Probably." He swallowed hard. "Do you?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you decided to speak before being forced." Another long exhale. Then he asked the question that exposed his deepest fear. "What if it still doesn't change anything?" Kira held his gaze, steady, unflinching. "Then you will change." He blinked, not understanding at first. Then the quiet sting of realization. He nodded and walked away, changed or breaking, she didn't know. Kira stood alone at the edge of the field, letting wind brush across her uniform. Somewhere engines started. Somewhere orders transmitted. Somewhere Roar's narrative collapsed molecule by molecule. She closed her eyes for a moment. Memory rose, cold water, nighttime oceans. The sound of instructors screaming instructions not because they hated students, but because survival required volume. A voice from her past. "Pain is temporary, integrity is permanent." She opened her eyes. Tomorrow would bring interviews. Confessions. Deflections. Electronic records. Legal phrasing. Not justice, but progress. And progress is louder than silence. She turned toward her barracks, whispering to the night, not prayer, not threat, just truth. Sometimes strength doesn't roar. Sometimes it just refuses to leave. And she walked on steady, alone, unbroken. Why did the quiet after the storm feel louder than anything that came before? Morning arrived without ceremony. No alarms malfunctioned. No sirens cut the air. The sun rose the way it always had, indifferent to human reckoning. But Camp Gray Rock woke differently, like a body after trauma, alert to every sensation, unsure which movements would hurt. Kira dressed slowly, purposefully. She didn't rush the morning. Rushing suggested urgency. Urgency suggested fear. She had neither. The mirror reflected a face still marked, fatting bruise along the cheekbone, lip healing in pale pink layers, jaw set with the calm of someone who had already survived the worst moment and lived to name it. She touched the cracked tooth once. Pain flickered, then settled. Temporary. Integrity lasted longer. Outside, the compound moved with formal stiffness. Marines stood straighter. Conversation stayed shallow. Nobody joked too loudly. When systems are forced to look at themselves, even the innocent grow cautious. At 800, she entered the interview room. Plain walls, recording device centered on the table, 2 officers present. 1 legal observer, professional, polite, detached. This wasn't about emotion now, it was about record. "State your name and rank for the record." Chief Petty Officer Kira Brennan, Naval Special Warfare. They asked her to recount Friday. She did. Not dramatically. Not defensively. Not with embellishment. She spoke in measured sentences, time, distance, position, sequence, how the training drill escalated, how verbal provocation preceded physical contact, how the kick landed, how she fell, how no one intervened. She didn't speculate on intent. She described outcome. At one point, the legal observer asked, "Why didn't you disengage earlier?" Kira answered without hesitation, "Because disengagement teaches aggressors that pressure works." Silence followed that statement, not uncomfortable, just heavy, a truth with no convenient rebuttal. They asked about the meeting in the gym annex. "Yes," she said. "I informed them the conversation was recorded." "Did you feel threatened?" "Yes." "How did you respond?" "I documented." That answer ended the line of questioning. By midday, the interviews concluded. Statements were cross-checked. Timelines aligned. Grayson's testimony matched hers. Medical logs corroborated impact force. Performance evaluations showed consistent behavioral issues preceding the incident. Roar's interview happened last. She didn't attend. She didn't need to. When someone lies under pressure, the truth doesn't argue. It waits. At 1,400, word spread, not officially, not announced, but felt. Marines whispered in hallways. A door closed too firmly. A voice rose, then dropped. Someone had failed to keep their story straight. By 1,600, Roar was relieved of supervisory duty pending outcome. No handcuffs. No spectacle. Just removal. Power rarely leaves loudly. It just stops being obeyed. Kira stood outside near the motor pool when she saw him emerge from the admin building. Alone. His shoulders sagged, not dramatically, just enough to show gravity had finally found him. He didn't look at her, not once. For a moment, just a moment, she felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Grief. Because she understood this part too well. How ego can rot a person from the inside. How fear of being seen weak can turn into cruelty. How systems sometimes reward volume instead of value. She didn't excuse him. But she didn't dehumanize him either. That mattered. As the sun dipped low, Commander Hayes called her into his office one last time. "This will move beyond the base," he said. "There are ramifications. Careers will be affected." "Good," she said. He nodded slowly. "You changed something here." "I revealed something," she corrected. He studied her for a long moment. "You know, some people will always resent you." "Yes." "And some will follow your example." She didn't respond. Influence wasn't something she claimed. "It's strange," Hayes said. "We train for combat endlessly, but when it comes to moral courage, we act surprised it hurts." Kira stood. "Pain isn't a warning sign, it's confirmation." He smiled faintly. "You're being reassigned." She raised an eyebrow, not concern, just attention. "Advanced instructor role," he said. "Short term, higher authority requested you specifically." She considered that. Movement meant distance. Distance meant change. She accepted it without relief or regret. "I'll report as ordered." Outside, the sky darkened. Stars began to puncture the horizon. She returned to her barracks, packed efficiently. The black notebook went into her bag, not as a trophy, not as a weapon, but as a record of something that should never have required recording. A knock sounded at the door. The young Marine from the pull-up bar stood there, eyes bright, nervous. "They told us," she said, "about the inquiry, about what you did." Kira waited. "I didn't quit," the Marine added, "and neither did two others." Kira nodded. "Good." "That's it?" the Marine asked, almost disappointed. "That's everything," Kira replied. The Marine smiled, a real one this time. She snapped a quick salute and left. Kira sat on the bunk once more, just for a moment, letting quiet settle. She thought of the women who had left, the ones who never got interviews, the ones who carried silence like a second rucksack. She couldn't fix that. She couldn't rewrite their past. But she could disrupt the pattern. She zipped her bag, stood, turned off the light. As she walked out of Camp Gray Rock for the last time, no one blocked her path. No one challenged her. A few Marines nodded, not reverence, not fear, recognition. Outside the gate, desert stretched wide and patient, endless, honest. She paused, breathing in the night air, feeling the ache in her jaw, the stiffness in her shoulders, the calm in her chest. Strength hadn't been loud. Justice hadn't been cinematic. There were no cheers. Just truth, recorded and carried forward. She stepped into the darkness, not alone, but no longer surrounded. Because sometimes dignity doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't demand belief. Sometimes dignity simply stands still long enough for lies to collapse around it. And when it finally moves, the world has no choice but to move with it.